Hi, I'm Tricia from Club Scrap, and this is the Little One Page Kit Workshop. During our time together, we'll be trimming and sorting and assembling those papers into 8 12 by 12 pages. I just want to quickly remind you that this is a special release. This collection was not sent to our membership as a whole, since it's a little bit more specialized. I've got my trimmer, my kit, and my instructions ready to go. Let's get started. First, I'm going to take all of the embellishments that were included in the kit, as well as the ribbon, and I'll set those aside just to isolate the paper. Here is my beautiful trimmer that I've been using for probably more than a decade now. I've got that ready to go. And then I have my accordion pocket file. This helps me stay organized by putting all the pieces for pairs of pages into 4 pockets. Now, if you don't have this, it's okay. Just maintain 4 separate piles instead of pockets. And I also do have a kit to help you make one of these for yourself if you don't have one quite yet. You can see how my trimmer holds it up so that I'm using my vertical space to stay organized. I also have a copy of the instructions. You don't necessarily need this on hand, but I will be definitely using this to guide you along the way. And I like to have my instructions on the right and my paper kind of on my left. But before we start trimming, let's organize the paper into the order we'll be using it. I like to pick it up and sort of hold it in the crook of my arm while I sort it out. And the first piece we'll trim is going to be this plaid print. So find one of those and put it face down on your trimmer, followed by the other cute little elephant print. We'll put him face down. And then next up, there's one sheet of this green shade in your kit. I want you to take this one, and it definitely has a side that feels like it's got more texture than the other. So I'll put it textured side down, followed by one piece of the ivory plain. There are a couple of pieces in there, but it's the lightest shade, just one sheet of that. And then there is one sheet also of this really beautiful textured dark brown. Texture side down. Then one light brown, so you can see the differences between the light and the dark. One piece of the gray. There's a lot of colors in this neutral kit. One gray. It's kind of like a bluish gray. It's so pretty. And then one manila. Now the manila is quite a bit darker than the ivory. Let me just show you by comparison. Here's the manila, there's the ivory. So just make sure the manila is the darker one. It also has little tiny recycled flecks in it. Now usually from the back of the stack, Deb collates the Cutaparts. So the first one I want you to find is the one that says Twinkle Twinkle Little Star on it. That'll go first, and then the other one that says Awesome People Make Awesome Babies. Put that face down. Then I'll have you find the remaining sheet of plaid, face down. One remaining sheet of the ivory will be next. Then 2 of the light brown that remain. The 2 sheets of manila that are left. And then 1 sheet of the elephant print face down, and then ending with the gray, the last sheet you have in the stack. If you need to review any of that, you can go right back to where we started with that. And I usually try to mark the chapters in the video so you can find the one that says sort paper. Okay, so I'll stack this neatly and then place it to my left. And the first piece we'll cut is this plaid sheet. And by the way, I did flip that paper back over so the plaid was on top. I think I forgot to mention that. Okay, so we need to find the measurement 9 1/4. And just as always, I like to remind you of this. Centimeters are the first row of numbers, inches are the second row. So here's the 9, and then to find 9 1/4, just go left 1 column to 9 1/4. I always push down on this clear bar to prevent the paper from moving around as the blade moves. And then we're going to slide the paper to 6 1/2. Now also resist the urge to move anything after it falls. Like, don't pick this piece up and move it somewhere else. We want it right next to the trimmer, right where it fell. So again, we're trimming at 6 1/2. And that's it. So take this large piece out of the trimmer base and place it in pockets 7 and 8. And when you do that, make sure you kind of do it at an angle so that you can still see the pocket number over here on the left side. Then we have 2 strips that are the same size remaining. Place those in pocket 3 and 4 at an angle as well. Now, Mr. Elephant, we'll trim him at 6 1/4. So again, find the 6, go left 1 column for 6 1/4, stabilize in the clear bar, and then go on down to 2 3/4. So 2 plus 1, 2, 3 columns to the left. The piece in your trimmer right now, 5 and 6. Now this piece kind of out of the middle, we're going to rotate it and cut at 9, 6, and 3. All 4 of these pieces plus the big other chunk of this print, it all goes in pocket 5 and 6. And it doesn't matter the order that something lands within the pocket, just that it lands in the right pocket. Next up, we have this single sheet of green. We're going to cut this one at 10 1/4. So 10 plus 1 to the left, 10 1/4. Stabilize. Then 8 1/2. And 4 1/4. Now the 2 pieces that you just made are the same size. We're going to stack them neatly together and cut them in half at 6. All 4 of these pieces go in pocket 3 and 4. And then the other 2 pieces that fell that are the same also go into pocket 3 and 4. And then we'll grab the ivory. Let's trim at 10 1/2 and 6 1/4. So 6 plus 1 column left. The 6 1/4 inch piece now gets rotated, cut at 8 1/2 and 4 1/4. These 2 pieces here should be the same size going into pocket 1 and 2. Then this smaller rectangle fell from the end. We'll trim that at 6 and 3. And then these 2 pieces here go into pocket 3 and 4. This little tiny piece right here, that is your first scrap. Say hello, that's a scrap. And then you have this wider, longer piece here. We're going to trim this at 6 1/4. And both the larger and then slightly shorter piece, they both go in 5 and 6. And now this is crazy. I regret to inform you that I didn't use this piece. That's really unusual for me to have a scrap that large, but you know, if you want to find a home for it, you're welcome to give it a go. Then we're moving on to page 2 of our instructions to the dark brown. Just make sure you have the dark one, and 1 sheet only exists. And we're going to trim a bunch of narrow strips here. So we're starting out at 11 3/4. That's going to yield a really tiny strip. Then 11 1/2, 11 1/4. Now 10 1/2, slightly larger piece. 9 3/4. Lots of cuts here, and then down to 5 1/2. Wow. All right, this large piece in your trimmer now, pocket 1 and 2. And then we have this medium-sized strip here. We'll trim this at 10 1/2 and 6 1/4. So all 3 of the pieces that are all different sizes, they all go into pocket 7 and 8. And then you've got a series of really somewhat skinny strips and really skinny strips. So these 2 larger pieces, they're not that large, they both go in 7 and 8. And then you have the 3 really skinny guys. Those are going to be going in 1 and 2. No scraps from that brown sheet. You're welcome. All right, now with 1 sheet of light brown, we're going to do a bunch of narrow strips again. So that's 11 3/4 for the first one, 11 1/2 for the next one, 11 1/4, 11, and then all the way down to 6. Rotate the 6-inch piece and trim at 11 1/4, 8, and 4. And these 2 pieces that are the same here, there's going to go in 7 and 8. And then this rectangle we're going to cut at 4 1/4 and 2 1/4. you made pieces that are 3 different sizes, okay? The 2 larger ones go in pocket 7 and 8, and the smallest one, 3 and 4. And this next wider sheet, I'll trim at 11 1/4, 7 1/2, 3 3/4. All 3 of these pieces are the same size, and they're all going to go in pocket 7 and 8. Now you probably are shouting to me, what do I do with that other longer piece? It goes the same way as the other, like, medium long piece. They're both scraps. Then you have the 4 really narrow strips. One of them, pocket 7 and 8. The other 3 go in pocket 3 and 4. And we're moving on to the gray. Guess what? More narrow strips. 11 3/4, 11 1/2. You'll see the role these play, I promise. 11 1/4, 6 1/4. Rotate. Cut at 8 1/2 and 4 1/4. 2 pieces, the same. Pocket 5 and 6. The narrow rectangle will trim at 6 and 3, making 2 rectangles the same size for pocket 1 and 2. And there is a yield of a little scrap here. I'll set that aside. Pick up the long, wider piece, trim at 11 1/4, 7 1/2, 3 3/4. Making 3 pieces the same, pocket 1 and 2. There is a small scrap, and then the 3 little pieces that are left over. Take one of them, put it in pocket 1 and 2, and the other 2 pieces, 5 and 6. Manila. Okay, trim at 11 1/2, 10 1/2, 6 1/4. Rotate the 6 1/4, trim at 11 3/4, 8 1/2, 4 1/4. Making 2 pieces the same size, pocket 7 and 8. And then we have this rectangle. We're going to trim at 6 and 3 3/4. The large piece in your trimmer base, pocket 7 and 8. The medium sized piece, 5 and 6. And then you have, well, I see 2 pieces here, 2 really skinny guys. This one just came off the end. This came off the bottom of that strip. They're both scraps. And then let's take this guy. We're going to trim this at 10 3/4, 10 1/2, making a tiny little slit, 8 1/2, bear with me, and 6 1/4. The piece in your trimmer right now, pocket 5 and 6. The piece on the top of the stack that fell, 3 and 4. The next piece in the stack, 5 and 6. Now there's going to be a really skinny strip, that's a scrap, and then there's this last narrow strip. I want you to cut him at 4. And that goes in pocket 7 and 8, leaving behind a tiny, tiny, tiny little scrap. And then we have this wider and narrower strip, both going into pocket 5 and 6. We still have 2 more pieces to trim. These are the cut-aparts. And before we can trim them apart, we need to actually remove the paper outside of the corner cutting guides. It says that right here on the paper. So there's that little guide right here and here. I'm going to place this in my trimmer just to take off that little edge. Now I don't measure anything at this point. I'm just eyeballing this, and I'm going to cut shy of that line and then go back and clean that up after I rotate again. And this time when I get that little line, well, I can hardly see at the bottom here. I'm going to do that one shy of the line too and clean it up in a minute. Now at this point, the paper is small enough that I can see the edge of the blade here at the top And here on the lower right corner, I can just see the stainless steel blade there. And I want to like basically remove the line. On this rotation, I'll do the same thing. And now when I come around again to where I started, now I can look at the 12. And I can see that it's lined up nicely. And then I'm going to rotate one more time. I'm just capable of taking off. Look at this little tiny sliver of imperfection. So I love that the trimmer is capable of doing those really narrow cuts. Now I'm going to rotate back to where it says Twinkle Twinkle Little Star on the right. I always want to take off the narrowest pieces first. And I'm going to cut this at 10.5. You can look to verify that the blade is separating the two strips. Then 9, 8.5, 8, 7, 6, and 3. Now this piece right here, pocket 1 and 2, it's so adorable. The next strip, we need to do some horizontal cuts. So place it in with a Baby Makes Love Stronger. That should be on your left. We'll cut at 11, 10, 9, 7.5, 6, and 3.5. This large framed piece, pocket 7 and 8. This next one is going to grow up to become a tag. One option that you have is to just kind of place the angled section onto your trimmer and try to match the margin that you see on each side with the distance from the yellow line to the edge of the tag. Works well for me. Let's put that in pocket 1 and 2. You can also use scissors. Same with the Stream Big. This is also going to become a tag. So if you want, you can do this step now or you can do it later. This goes in pocket 3 and 4. This little guy with the star on the top. And I love that when you punch a hole in this shape, it goes right in the middle of the star. It's so cute. This is pocket 1 and 2. And then you have these 1-inch pieces. They all go in pocket 1 and 2 as well. Your First Breath took ours away. I love that. 7 and 8. Then these other two really teeny little border strips, also 7 and 8. And then the Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, 3 and 4. And all you have left to dispose of there is the little triangles from the tags. So very few scraps here anyway. Now this is the second sheet of Cutaparts and the same thing needs to happen. I'm going to remove my edges just like before, as neat as possible. Really just try to be careful on this step because even those like those large commercial size trimmers that trim these papers down from their parent size, it just can't seem to do as accurate of a job as we can on this final cut here. And that's why I have you do it, because if the big commercial trimmer doesn't do it perfectly within like a millimeter, everything, it's kind of like the butterfly effect. None of these cuts ever seem right. Okay, so here we have these sweet little borders on our right, and we'll trim at 11 1/4, 10 1/2, 8 3/4, 7 and 4. Now rotate so that the lion head is on the right, and we'll trim at 10 and 6. And this big guy goes in 5 and 6, and then the good at naps, 7 and 8. And the little lion, 3 and 4. And we have this guy on the right. We'll cut at 10, 8, and 6. And this piece goes in pocket 3 and 4. The little koala, 5 and 6. The little bunnies, 1 and 2. and this guy in 7 and 8. Then we have our sweet heart border 1 and 2. And here I'll cut at, I guess I will cut just in between these two guys here. You could use scissors for this as well. I'm not giving you a measurement because it's on a really odd number. And then 7 and 4. You are loved. Place him in 5 and 6. And then the beginning of you, 7 and 8. We've got this guy's face, 3 and 4. And then this one in 5 and 6. And this guy in 7 and 8. So sweet. Our last two pieces go in pocket 5 and 6. Now that we're done with all of the trimming, you can turn in your instructions. This might sound a little weird. If you're using a printed copy of the instructions, turn to page 4 at the bottom, okay? We're gonna be assembling pages 7 and 8 first. And by assembling, it's up to you how much you assemble, okay? What you can do is follow along with me and just place each piece where it's gonna live on 7 and 8, and we'll work our way down to pages 1 and 2. So that we're done. When we're done, you'll have a stack of pages 1 through 8. One will be on the top, and then either immediately or at a later date, you can go ahead and adhere and add all the pieces and finish up those pages. A lot of people take it this far as what we're gonna do today, put everything back in the bag it came in with the instructions, and then when they're going to be at a crop with friends or in a more relaxed situation where you don't have to think so hard, you can just do all that assembly and it will go very, very quickly. And then of course you can add your photos. Alternatively, you could also just stick everything down, push pause and stick everything down before we move on to layouts 5 and 6. Totally your call. I'm just going to be saving a little bit of time by not adhering with you right now. So as you lock your trimmer blade and get rid of it, remember that your trimmer was holding up your accordion pocket file. So from now on, your accordion pocket file should be laying on its back. So next, we're going to take the way I've got this paper stacked. It's very strategic. So I'm going to take the whole pile that we have, all the remaining sheets, and set this on my work surface kind of to the left of the center. And then I'm going to slide the top sheet over to the right. And what that's going to give me is the base for layouts 7 and 8. Remember, I had you turn to that page. It's the back of your instructions, the bottom of page 4. And sure enough, it shows the plaid print on the right and the ivory plain on the left. To find the pieces, we're going to need to empty the last pocket, 7 and 8. I'll take out this large sheet of plaid and just place it right there on the left edge. And then I'll just fetch everything else out of the pocket, remembering all the little pieces and parts. And when I deal the things out onto the page, I do like to have the items like in my hand as best I can. Now, if you can't hold things like that, that's totally okay, but it's just a little bit easier rather than picking everything up piece by piece. All right, right away I see this large dark brown mat, and that's going to be placed in the upper right hand corner of the left side, and then neighboring that you'll have the other square, and we should have the little square cut apart that says good at naps is going to nest right on there. Cool. Following that, we'll say your first breath. And then I'm going to take one of those, I think it's a 3/4 inch strip of dark brown right beneath it, and then nest it with that cute little border strip here. Oh, so darling. Finally, on this page, we can find a series of 3 shorter light brown mats that will go in a row. So you can have 3 great little pictures of your napping baby. Okay, now on the right, we're going to place the manila down first, these larger manila mats, and then nest them with the darker brown. So you can double mat some nice featured photos there. And then with the manila, we'll add this guy. Now you could tuck the manila behind this or keep it in front, totally your call. Now take the remaining part of the title, took ours away, then below that, the light brown strip, and then below that, the dark brown. Kind of adds some nice color in there. Also serves as a great divider. Now keep in mind too, if you want to put a picture on top of this, a picture on top of that, because you have a lot of pictures of your beautiful baby, go for it, right? And then this is going to nest with our journaling prompt. And then this tan is going to nest with the beginning of you. And then I did happen to have, like these were going to be scraps. I just trimmed a little bit off of this one and so I could nest it. You could maybe make another notation or add a cute little picture there, totally your call. And then finally, this little head, you can trim it into a circle using a punch, your scissors, or a circle, a thin cutting die. Once it's a circle, you can layer it onto the cute little tag. I inked the edges of my bear-shaped tags with our earth ink and a sponge applicator. Totally, you know, could be omitted if you wanted to, but that's really cute right about there. Now on my finished pages, I added a couple of other featured items. So this is the tag with the edges inked in earth. So you can see it really adds, and the color is such a good match. In fact, I think I started with caramel ink and then added earth, which is why it maybe has a more of a creamy tone to it. So, you know, maybe you want to do that. I did find a thin die from my die cutting machine that was about right as for size, and that's what I used, but scissors will work just fine as well. And then I threaded it with the gingham ribbon and then taped the ribbon to the back of my layout. Over here I did a cute little trick with the ribbon. I'm going to be releasing a new ribbon video soon, but basically I entered the 2 punched holes. Now there are marks on the tag here for where to punch the hole, right here and here. And I did that with my crocodile punch. Okay, and then I threaded the ribbon through the front holes. Okay, so like a length of ribbon, one end goes through the front on the left, one end goes through the front on the right. And then I took the ribbon and threaded it around the back and out the opposite hole, and then trimmed the ends. I think that's just the sweetest thing ever. So that is, oh, and I also added this to the layout with foam adhesive. Now on this page, the only thing I did other than just sticking everything down is I wrapped this with a couple of turns with the 2 yards of the twine that I had, the baker's twine with the gray. And that's all I did on that one. I want to point out when you are adding those narrow little strips, I take our bookbinding glue and I put it in one of these little needle tip applicators, and then I run the tip of the applicator along the edge of took ours away. So I would attach this, then run the nozzle along the edge of it, and I can bring my little tan strip to the glue. You don't need to put the glue on the strip, just put it on the paper and then bring the glue to, or the strip to the glue. Just a much easier way to apply those narrow strips, and especially since you're going to be doing a lot of them in the next, you know, with this particular page, because we did trim a lot of narrow strips. All right, I'm going to take this now, this ivory sheet, and just slide it on over. And yes, when you put this on into a bag, everything falls down to the bottom, but you'll be surprised when you take it back out of the bag, you'll be able to easily put it back together again. It's just like, you know, when you get a puzzle out of the box and someone else has already put it together, there's a couple of pieces still connected, kind of like that. Now I'm looking at pages 5 and 6 here. The base is the tan. You saw how I slid that paper on over. So I had it all queued up for you so beautifully. And then I'll take everything out of pocket C. Oh, got it all in one handful. I'm taking this larger piece here and placing it on the right edge, and then this on the left edge here, right up against the edge. And then we're going to go ahead and add our little paper ribbon. So again, this would be the point where after I adhere this, I will run the nozzle along the edge and the nozzle along the edge, and then go ahead and add the gray strips to the glue rather than trying to put glue on the little tiny strip. Let's see, there is a narrow ivory that's going to fit right in there. Look at that. Then you have this manila strip, and you can nest it with one of these leafy borders that goes right about there. And the other, this is kind of interesting. I had a lot of these little end cuts and I used them, so I forgot that I nested this with the manila. And this is why I don't adhere something until I know I've got every piece from the pocket on my page. Next to that, I added this strip. We got a nice little layout in forming here. Okay, we've got this larger manila will be nested with our cut-apart title. Just kind of make that stand out a little bit. And then we have these little pieces. They do have a print. I'm going to put the larger photo mat in the middle. And then you have those pieces, they're 3.5 by 3, I think. We're going to go above and below the larger mat in the center. I always love that arrangement. The two remaining gray mats end up like tilted here. And then you also have a manila mat for your journaling prompt. It's going to be anchored right here. From your goodies, there is this sweet little patch, bear patch. You Are Loved gets matted and also added right here. And then one of the bear tags will be matched up with this face and then added right here with some ribbon. Taking a look at our finished page 6. Here I punched the holes into the tag and then just threaded a double thickness of the twine from the back to the front, tied the ends together and trimmed them. And this was added, I think, just with my ATG adhesive. You could also add it with bookbinding glue. Just be aware that you might want to be sliding a picture behind there, so keep that area free of adhesive, just on the very left edge. Otherwise, it's very straightforward, right? On the facing page, I was able to thread some of that twine onto the cute little elephant charm. And then I inked the edges of the bear tag, threaded it with the gingham, and wrapped the ends around to the back. Very, very basic and sweet as can be. Now I'm going to take the base of page 5 and slide it onto page 6. And then I'm going to take one sheet of the manila, slide that on over. And I also need to reverse in my instructions to layouts 3 and 4. Then I'll empty everything from the pocket labeled 3 and 4, or if you've been using piles, grab pile 3 and 4. Let's add our sweet little plaid up here. And then we're going to mirror everything kind of gets reflected. So that's down here along the edge. Then once again, you'll do your little trick with the tan or the light brown paper. Add a narrow strip to separate from the pattern to the plain. I think that looks so much better than if we just left it. Then, even more color, we'll add the green. See, everything's reflected. And the title. So, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, do you know how loved you are? Now, just on the right side, we'll use the third and final narrow strip. Okay, we've got 3 green mats here. 2 of them are going to be angled here, and the other 2 are going to be right about there. We have our ivory mats. It kind of puzzles in very nicely, so you can still see the title. And then Dream Big Little One. You can follow through with angling the mat for it or not. I'll put that over here. Now, here's a tip. On this guy, I used a slot punch. So do you see there's already a slot kind of templated in there? So you can just pop it out and have a nice little slot if you want. One thing to keep in mind is that after this nests onto here, my slot punch can't reach that far, okay? So what I did was used a craft knife to carry through the slot just to cut an opening into the manila. Another option is to add your ribbon to this or, loop it through before you nest it, okay? Just wanted to point out that your slot punch won't be able to reach that far in on the layer that I have going on there. Right here, we've got our awesome people make awesome babies. You can overlap that more or overlap onto that little title. I added the face to this cute little guy and placed him right there, kind of so it's overlapping through that plain corner. Then, of course, the most logical location to use all of my little stars would be on this with this title, right? Our corduroy appliques. So you can decide how you want to add those, but isn't that sweet? Here is our page 5. I stapled I just did a little crisscross with my tiny attacher, stapled that there. And then this I attached with foam adhesive after threading it with the cotton twill, after punching a hole right through the middle of the star. So adorable. And then on the facing page here, I did some fun things. I used bookbinding glue to attach these. You could also use ATG. Inked the edges of the bear tag with earth, attached the twine, and then I even glued down the knot so that it doesn't move all over the place. Here's the triple ribbon. So I nested the gingham onto the twill, cut in lengths where the gingham is a little shorter. Then I tied that ribbon into a bow with the twill. How sweet was that? Okay, so I'm going to take this manila. I also marked the chapters for the individual pairs of pages. So if you want to double check on things going on with a certain thing, you can just fast forward directly to the page where you might have a question. And here we are on pages 1 and 2 already, my friends. This time has flown by. I love the efficiency of all of this. Where should we start? How about this great big brown piece goes right about there. And then these are sitting on top, so I'll add my ivory photo mats here. Like, the order of this assembly does not matter. I added a gray strip below this. This is going to pop up here and then be flanked with the brown. It just adds so much. It's kind of like a fake out, right? I mean, this is totally faked. Oh, and I think that this, I'm sorry. This is going to go first, right? Because of the layering. And you'll remember that when you're doing your adhesiving, your gluing process. All right, and then we have the brown above it. You could put it below it too if you wanted to. I just thought it was a nice separation between the two shades of ivory. Then this will be placed here with our paper ribbons, as I like to call them, on either side. Okay. We have a tag that goes here with some of the cotton twill looping through that. And then this had the twine, a smile. The smile of a baby is like a kiss of the soul, with our cute little patch here. Had some fun over on this side. First, a row of 3 gray on top of the brown to anchor it. And then I added, remember this, and I also added a little love charm. I just glued it on with our bookbinding glue from the needle tip applicator to each little guy there. And then a pair. This, I did the gingham ribbon trick again on the tag. I've added this sweet little elephant, and again, bookbinding glue does a great job with adhering metal objects to paper. That's really all I have. I did talk about this other charm earlier. I just didn't physically add it to the page. Here's all that ribbon, and let's take a look. Here is the same little ribbon trick that I did. So entering from the front, one tail through this hole, one tail through this hole, bring the tail in the left hole out of the right hole, and then trim the end in a cute way. And you've got a great way to add ribbon without creating a huge lump. And then the 3 little love charms. And then that's why the photo prescription here is for it to be a square. It'll look really, really nice. By the way, the measurement that the photo needs to be is superimposed into its spot on the instructions. So if you've never really used the instructions, I do give you the measurement that the photo should be to fit on there with a nice 1/8 inch margin on all sides. On the facing page, here is the charm added with the glue. Again, I glued the knot of the twine down onto the paper so it wouldn't be moving all over the place. Cute little bear patch there. This has been attached with foam adhesive with the ribbon looping around to the back. That's page 1 already. Now, if this was the first time you've ever followed along with any kind of a page assembly with me, welcome. I'm so glad you gave it a whirl. I was probably going really fast. You probably had to use the pause button liberally. But I do want to challenge you now with this one final thing, is go ahead and stick everything down with your favorite adhesive. I use an ATG applicator just to make quick work of it. That and a combination of this and my foam adhesive. So I use 3 different types of adhesive typically, plus cellophane tape or washi tape as well. So I have all my different adhesives, but basically the hard work is done. Now just do this assembly, and then I want to challenge you to find your pictures, right? Just get them printed, get them all printed on 4x6s, and then add your pictures to these finished pages. You'll be so amazed at how well balanced and lovely they are and how much time it saves you. If you start out with a picture, then try to gather paper from your stash, gather your stuff to make a title, gather your ribbons, gather things that coordinate, it's a completely different experience, but you will be amazed at how efficient it really is. Now, I do this every month at Club Scrap. We do have a monthly subscription. It's a kit. It won't be as narrow in scope as this one as far as the theme goes. Our themes are very broad. But try this with me every month. Consider a membership to Club Scrap. You'll save on your kits if you're not already a member. And then you can bring your kits this far or finish them, completely with the adhesive. Then when you get a batch of pictures developed, do they still say developed? Printed. Then go ahead and add them to your pages. It's so much fun. And right here on staff at Club Scrap, Karen finishes her 8 layouts every single month. And she's really just caught up with her life. Can you imagine being caught up on your scrapbooking? Well, there is one way to do it, and that is the Club Scrap way. So I hope you'll give it a try. Take a moment, leave me a comment if you wish, and definitely make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. Just hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss any other fun workshops coming your way from our warehouse here in Neenah, Wisconsin. Thank you again for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you in another workshop soon.